Hey y'all, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Katrina and this is I want to have a conversation, and I want to differentiate that from a response, because response, even though it's kind of a neutral term, it's still kind of, it can possibly be taken as I don't know, combative. And I honestly do just want to have a conversation about things. And I did it. I like when I watch certain booktubers, and it sparks thought for me, and I want to talk about it. That's literally all I'm doing. It's a different opinion from this booktuber, but it's still just a conversation, and I think that the opinion that this booktuber has is super valid. I just want to come from my experience, and so yeah, that's the preamble to this. And so I'm going to title it a conversation, and then any other response type videos I'll call it a conversation as well, because conversation sounds softer than response. So I want to have a conversation about Sheila at Meta Narratives videos that is titled Readathons Are Dumb. And her basic thoughts, I'll link the video down below, and her basic thought is, first of all, who does this benefit? She thinks that, coming together, having a booktuber come together, announce a readathon, selling things, that sits wrong with her. She doesn't appreciate the random readathons. She thinks it's a privilege to read all day. People work, go to school, can't read fast enough. That's another thing. She doesn't think it's beneficial to have the community peer pressure to read quantity over quality, and she feels that people ends up skimming more and not really they think about the numbers of the pages that they're reading rather than really soaking in and taking in the language. She says that there's not a lot of discussion when it comes to these readathons, and she goes back to multiple times she doesn't understand the fascination or the need to quantify how many pages that they've read. And so I'm hoping that that is a fair breakdown of what she was saying. And so I wanted to speak to some of these things, because when I started to get serious about YouTube, I started a booktube last year, and I just had like a couple, like a vertical video and I think a hello booktube, and then I read a book that everybody was seemingly to not understanding, and so I did a review about that, and that made me get a little bit more serious, because I kept thinking, what kind of voice would I have in this community? Like, who wants to hear an old woman talking about books in this very young, because I was watching booktube and I didn't realize that there were different cliques, not cliques in a bad way, but just that there were different, not clicks, let's say different corners of booktube, that it wasn't just white people talking about fantasy or young adults. There were older people, there were black people. There's a lot more black people than I thought. Not enough, but there were black people, that there were people who were just talking about a whole range of books, that there are people who love thriller and horror and mystery as much as I did. I set up a bunch of goals when I started the year, and started, was it 2020? I don't remember, but when I started at the new year, I wanted to get serious about the hobby of booktube, and one of the things I wanted to do was to join a readathon. I wanted to do a book club. What else? I can't remember some of the other things I wanted to do, but I wanted to contribute to the community because I had been taking so much. I had been watching videos for so long, and I wanted to contribute, and I wanted to become part of it. And I did that. I joined, I believe, I think I did Winterween. I think that was the first one. Yeah, I did Winterween, and then I did Blackathon. And Blackathon was the most beneficial, because I did not realize that there were so many mystery, thriller, horror writers that were Black. I had no idea. And while Blackathon is not the formless readathon that Sheila at Meta Narrative is talking about, because she didn't talk about kind of formed, like themed ones as much. She really talked about people just kind of getting on and saying, hey, next, she name dropped the Dewey readathon, and I've heard other people talk about that, and I'm not quite sure what that is, but apparently to her, it's just a formless, just read whatever you're going to read, as many books as you can in 24 hours. But Blackathon was very themed. There was multiple teams. There was science fiction. There was the mystery. I did the mystery horror one. And then the prompts were based on actual authors. And so it made it very easy to get a book. Like if you were really well versed, you could get a book that was like a Victor LaValle book or like a Megan Giddings, but what was it? Yeah, and so Rachel Howitzel Hall, like I was open, my eyes were open to all of these different books, and then watching the different booktubers and the books they were saying that they were going to read. I found Quay Quardy. I loved Wife of the Gods. I found Victor LaValle, who has become a favorite. I was Tananarive Due. Starla Reeves was one of the leaders of the Blackathon. Jesse and Starla Reeves, they both were leaders, and I think there was someone on Booktube, Bookstagram as well, and they each had a different team. Over this last course of a year and a half or so, my eyes have been open to, Alyssa Cole, all of these, even young adult Black writers, middle grade horror by Black writers. And all of this is almost all of it is through readathons. And I have been so enriched by that to find people writing in the section that I like the most, thrillers, mystery, horror, with people that look like me, and then to have that deeper level, because it's already a horrific thing to be a person of color in the West. So all the different layers, I've been so enriched by those books, and I found so many new favorite authors that readathons have been exceptional. Now there are a couple that I have not taken part of, just because like this month I'm really trying to catch up on arcs and long-term reading projects that I've been doing, like the prison one, and I'm trying to finish Song of Solomon. I have 5 arcs, and I want to get all that done. I want to try to get my score up on NetGalley, and then I want to really just luxuriate in spooky books all October and probably into November. Just read whatever spooky book I want. That's my hope. And then read a bunch of holiday romances and stuff over Christmas and New Year's. And so to do that, I've been kind of not taking part. Like I didn't take part of Camp Octoberween, but I did Summerween. I did, and even with those, like I didn't discover favorite authors, but I still enjoyed the creativity of, I think, what I put into it. I think other people putting into it. I like the crafty side of Booktube, so I like making the thumbnails. I like making the story templates and things like that for my Bookstagram, and it was nice. And it was like you got this little frisson of joy when one of your favorite big booktubers would, reblog or repost your, checklist or what you finished reading. I just wanted to say that, and I really appreciate Sheila's point of view on video. So again, this is just a conversation. This is just me adding to the conversation and my point of view, and the fact that I did. I wanted to speak to privilege as well. I am a stay-at-home mom, and I am in a place that is severely economically kind of depressed. My husband works an hour, a little bit more, over an hour away, and because of a whole lot of issues, I can't work. This is the point where I would be working. This is the time, the age that I started working with my older. I've always stayed home with my kids until they were preschool, kindergarten, and I would start, working my way up in places. And so this is the time I would be working, and I've been very frustrated about some of the just, online receptionist jobs that would work right in between when they're in school, but because of the broadband situation. So I'm hoping that Biden's, push to get broadband everywhere actually goes through. And so it's a privilege to be able to read as much as I do, but I don't see being stuck at home as a privilege. Although I love being a homemaker, but I would like to add a part-time job to that, and I'd still be the homemaker that I want to be. But everybody isn't on Booktube reading a lot because it's a privilege. It's something to help. Getting on Booktube helped me in a lot of ways. It gave me, it was a marker of mental health for me. When I was at the worst of the nervous breakdown, I guess is the old-timey way of saying that whatever happened, I had a crisis of mental health about 4 years ago, and there was no attention span. There was no, the depression was, they ask you with depression, they say, can you enjoy things? I couldn't enjoy reading. I had lost my attention span, so I couldn't focus on reading. Medicines were messing with my mind, and so it took us a couple years to get medicine right so that I can function and still manage my symptoms and things like that. And so when I was able to start reading again, and then when my speed started getting back up, and when I was able to start actually reading with my eyes again, because I still was listening to books and that was all I could do. But when I actually began to read books and slow read and fast read physical books and books online, that was a marker of health. And then to be able to start talking to other people about books, to have friends that have this similar interests, or acquaintances at this point that have similar interests, because nobody around me reads the way I read. And you can only talk to your husband about Game of Thrones so much because he reads like military books and World War II and stuff like that. And we overlap very, very, very lightly, so not often enough for me to talk to him about. So it's not necessarily, it is a privilege because I have the money to buy, we have the extra money for me to buy so many books, because there's no library around here. There's a library, but it doesn't have anything. It doesn't have online services. It's not hooked up to Libby or Hoopla or anything like that. We just gave up on even going. We got library cards for the kids when we first moved here, but there wasn't very much there. And so I buy used books. We don't have a Goodwill anywhere around here. The place that I live is called a micropolitan. I have never heard of that before, and it's a micropolitan, and the parish seat is smaller than, I've never lived in a place as small as the county seat, and we're in a place that's even smaller. And so we just don't have other accesses to, so we don't have the privilege of libraries and Goodwills and thrift stores and Value Villages and Salvation Armies, which I used to just scour. We had multiple bookcases all over our house in Colorado because we had such great libraries that had library sales. And I gave up libraries because we would just rack up fees so much with 5 kids, and it was just bad. So each kid had bookcases in their room. There was bookcases on our hallway landing, big wall of bookcases down in our main area, bookcase in the playroom, like bookcases everywhere, full of everything from the baby board books all the way up to my husband and I's books. Almost all of them. I think the only new books we bought were Game of Thrones and Outlander, because and then like before that, Twilight, because those were the fandoms, and Charlene Harris and stuff like that. But everything else we found by just weekly going to the Goodwills and we would even go on Military Mondays and get even cheaper books. So we were getting 10 and 50-cent books, and so there were books surrounding us. And so we don't even have that now. I don't have that now, but I do have the privilege of having a little bit of extra money and trying out, used book boxes and things like that, and having the services and stuff. But I almost don't see that as a privilege. I see it as a necessity, because I don't have the privilege of a big city and all the accoutrement that comes with the big city that I had before. And I'm stuck, with not being able to work in the field that I've been working in, or which is basically just office work that I always did. And communications doesn't, like, for me, it really didn't. I worked in offices, but I was able to do that in a bigger city, and I'm stuck, and my outlet, my friend, my socialness is this community. So it's and for my mental health to have something else. So it is a privilege, because I have the ability. I have the some lights, my vanity lights, and I have a really decent tablet. I had the ease of access to just upload. And I have the privilege of getting the mental health and the medicines and things that I need, so that I could get to a place where I can do this again, so that I can read a lot and read fast. But it was still an almost, I don't want to say necessity. Is there a word between necessity and frivolous? Like, there's got to be, and that's what I feel like. I feel like I'm at that meeting point between privilege and necessity, and Booktube is at that meeting point for me. And there have been some delightful things coming from people that don't even know I'm alive. I've found, that had a big impact on me and my reading, and the way I look at the world, and the way I look at books, and the way I look at people's different ideas about the books, and including Sheila. Sheila is, I believe she is located in India. I'm very sorry if I'm wrong about that, but she talks a lot about Indian authors, so I'm assuming that. She might be somewhere else, because I think she's in her PhD program somewhere else. But she really shines a light on international issues. She talks a lot about Western privilege and focus on Canada and America and Britain and Australia to a smaller degree. But so that's my kind of rambly conversation, my input into the idea of readathons being dumb. I think that's too reductive. I think that adults on the channel can decide, yes, this is a community. One of the things she said was that she doesn't think that it's beneficial to have the community peer pressure to read. So you may she actually had like a fake conversation in her head and was like, well, you're an adult, just decide that you're not going to make this readathon about quantity over quality. And she's like, but you want to be part of the community. And it's like, yeah, but like very quickly I realized what worked for me and what didn't, because I was doing Buzzwordathon, I was doing all the winter wings, I was doing the Blackathon, and I was trying to do all of these different book clubs. I was doing Gabby Reed's book club, Literally Dead book club. There was another book club I was doing for a while, and it just got to be too much, because I was also trying to do NetGalley, and I wanted the freedom to just read what I wanted. You have to decide for yourself. The majority of us are adults. Even if we're reading young adult books, or even if we are young adults, the majority of us are adults on this platform. And so you just have to decide what works for you and get out of your way. Get out. So and then let people enjoy their things too. The other thing is, like, she kept wondering why people liked statistics and pages. I don't care about that stuff, but I love watching people who enjoy that talk about it. I like watching Book Like Woes talk about her stats. Books and Lala talks about stats. Who else does stats? There's another person who does stats for each of their monthly ones. Like other people do like quarterly stats. I don't care about stats. I don't keep accounts of reading. Like if I were to design my reading journal or something, I wouldn't have a stats page. I would just want to keep a record of what I read and what I thought about it and things like that. I'm even questioning ratings, so that's even more something that, so I'm just very much so this, and being a part of this community and seeing how people do things and being able to try their thing and take what works from that and leave what doesn't, and that's part of kind of figuring out who you are. And so it's up to the person to have the experience that they're going to have with Booktube. So if you feel pressured, take that pressure off of you. Like if somebody that has a readathon and their thing is I really haven't seen it, but I haven't seen all of Booktube, obviously. But a lot of the readathons that I've seen, the magical ones and all that kind of stuff, they just say read this kind of book. Most of them have silly things like, bake some cake that's themed and read a book with a purple cover, and like you can combine them and stuff like that. Most of them aren't stressful. I don't know where this stress comes from. And if there is stress, let that stress go. That's what I can say. Like I was stressing myself out in the beginning, and then I was like, you know what? I don't have to have this stress. I'm not going to do TBRs. I'm not going to do the 15 different, I'm going to do the readathons that I enjoy. And so I threw my whole being into Blackathon. And I appreciate that. I appreciate what came out of it. And I got the most out of that readathon. That was my very long-winded conversation about Sheila at Meta Narrator. Readathons are dumb. I don't think they are. I think that they are beneficial to some people, and the different versions, there's so many different versions, we can't just have a blanket statement that readathons are dumb. And what do you think about yucking people's yum, the state of Booktube readathons? Do you keep account of your pages, whether you published it on, whether you use it as content on your Booktube or not? Do you keep account, like in a reading journal or something, of your pages? Why do you do that if you do? What does graphs and stuff do for you when it comes to reading? I've rambled on long enough. Let me know what you think about this topic down in the discussion area. Let's talk about this. Let's find out what we all think about the state of Booktube in this situation. Let's leave this emoji if you don't have anything to say, but you just want to add to the algorithm and the make an offering to the YouTube gods with this emoji. Be easy on yourself, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.